season officially gets underway this weekend, I am excited. I am thrilled. It's finally here. We don't have to keep doing just pure preview. I know our latest guest is excited as well. Houston softball head coach Kristin Vesely. Thank you for joining us again this year here on the 1012 podcast.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I know I'm excited for the season to start. And I am excited to finally see the new programs, BYU, UCF, and Houston in the Big 12. I can only imagine that my excitement pales in comparison to you, your staff, and your players to finally be able to get out there and start playing some games as members of the Big 12.
We're thrilled. We're in a new conference. We've got an ambitious team. We have strong leaders. We have new coaches. So we are absolutely excited to get the season going. There's a lot of things we feel like we know, and we'll only know when that first pitch happens. We'll be able to see all the hard work that we put in this fall. So to say we're excited is minimizing it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm ready. I'm ready to see it on my TV. I know you guys are obviously excited as well. New, I think, is kind of, let's say new is the word to describe this season for you guys. Obviously a new conference, but I mean, two brand new assistant coaches in Hope Troutwine, which I think Big 12 fans are very well aware of that name. Nadia Taylor, who had 4 years at Texas. And we'll talk about them in a second, but I want to start with, I mean, it's a very new roster. This feels like this was a kind of a roster overhaul. There's none other school that I think experienced this from a softball standpoint. We're used to seeing this kind of stuff in football and basketball. I'm not used to seeing in softball to see 9 players out and 10 back in. I think overhaul is the right word to use, because I am curious from your standpoint, what was kind of the mindset when you looked at the roster and started planning this offseason for your arrival in the Big 12 to kind of make this kind of change?
As a leader, we look at things, we look in the mirror first and we address our program, we assess it, and we weren't where we wanted to be and we weren't where we needed to be. With the transition from mid-major to Power 5 in the Big 12, we want to be competitive. We want to compete for championships. So we had to make some necessary changes that, at the end of the day, it's for the betterment of the program and to represent our university and athletic department well. And it's some stuff that, even as a leader, there's a lot of adjustments that I had to make. And this was a summer we basically got to kind of start from scratch and create a new vision and then go find players that can make that happen.
I mean, like I said, 9 out, 10 in. Let's talk about the out first. I think it's kind of, I don't want to call it a dirty little secret, but I think we all understand that, like, the transfer portal works both ways. Players want the opportunity to go and play somewhere else. And sometimes coaching staffs have to look at the opportunities for players and say, it may not be best for you to stay here because the opportunities that you want aren't going to be available to you. What were some of those conversations like with the players who did leave the program this offseason?
I think we're transparent. Like as coaching staff, we're transparent. This is where we are. This is where we want to be, and how we're going to make those adjustments. Some, athletes look at it and go, okay, I don't want to be a part of the transition. Or some athletes are like, I want to play. Is there an opportunity for that? And we had honest conversation. At the end of the day, we're doing what's best for the program and the players. And I think a lot of it was amicable. We're making sure that we were doing what we had to be done as a leader. Also, the players want to play, and we always want to encourage players to find opportunities somewhere if they can get on the field. They only get 4 years of softball. I mean, sometimes 5 because of a national pandemic that nobody anticipated, but our world pandemic. But making sure, for us, that we're supportive. We're supportive of athletes if they want to go somewhere else or they want to get on the field and that opportunity is not here, is trying to help them find a new home.
When you went looking in the portal, I don't want to say shopping, it's a weird word to use for it, but when you went looking in the portal to find new players to add to the roster along with the freshmen you brought in, what was your mindset? What were you looking for aside from just, we need some pitchers, we need some people in the outfield or at second base? What were you looking for?
Players that wanted to contribute and be a part of redirecting a program. Not only did they have the physical talent, they had the mental makeup and the willingness to buy in. And that's something, as a coach, I know we talk about it, we had to go find those players, and we wanted a couple that were dogs, and dogs try to eat, and that's exactly what we want. We want to make sure we have, aggressive personalities, aggressive players. We had to pivot 180 degrees from where we were, and I think we did that with who we signed off the portal, and how we've been training and how we've been developing these players.
I think dogs is the right word. You brought in some players who have some real experience, especially in the postseason, which what you guys are trying to get to. You look at Jasmine Rollin from Arizona State. You look at Lair Butte from Tennessee. You look at Shelby Smith from Seton Hall. Like, you brought in some players for this season that have experience both in postseason, deep into the postseason, and being starters on some very talented teams.
And it doesn't, and this list doesn't stop there. Kennedy Thomas came from Cal. They had a run last year in regionals. The year before, we brought in Taria Coleman, who's a national champ, brought in Bree Cantu that year as well, and had experience in the World Series. So, again, making sure that we continue to bring in players that understand what it takes to get there, but that are also willing to represent our program. And wearing Houston across your chest is a badge of honor, and having players to understand that, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we do as a program. And all of those players you named, I mean, they're ready to go. They're ready to make program history.
I think Shelby Smith is an interesting example with from Seton Hall of someone who's from the Houston area. How much do you look for players who are from Texas, are from Houston, and want the opportunity to come back home or closer to home when you're looking at players in the portal?
A lot, a lot. I mean, Texas is a great softball state. The city of Houston produces top talent every single year. So when we see kids on the portal that are from here that we've seen play since they're 10 or 12 years old, or had the experience working with them at camps when they were young, we know who they are. We know who their families are. We know that they have a different level of pride because they're playing for a city and a school that's in their hometown. Hotbed of talent, and we recruit every year against other Big 12 schools, the SEC, the Pac-12. So, I mean, obviously, if they get on the portal and they're from this area, like, we want them. We want them to represent their city.
Your pitching staff, I don't think there's anything about this team the team that's more new than the staff. Every arm is gone from last year, and you've got a whole entire new pitching staff. What was the thought process when you went in looking specifically for your pitchers? Is this we need an ace and then just some people to back her up? What was your mindset? What were you looking for?
We kind of went differently. We looked for pitchers that would complement each other, and we looked for ones that were different in age. So Shelby has 200 plus innings for 180 to 200 innings the last 2 years. She's a horse. She can handle it physically. She can handle it mentally. So getting her was a big get for us. We have Nikki Badeau, again, came from Maryland, was a freshman last year. I mean, she has 4 years of eligibility left, and we're able to build her and Shelby both complement each other. And then with Paris and Tamaya, we're able to build out our roster to make sure that they all throw something different. They all throw different speeds. Now it's up to us to make sure that we're strategizing to execute based on their strengths.
Um, do you guys have your lineup set? Are you
We
ready? Like, do you ready game one? You're like, this is the lineup. We know what it is. This is everybody's role. Do you feel comfortable and confident, or is there going to be some tinkering and experimenting and playing through the first few weeks of the season?
The best thing about being a coach is not knowing who's going to start and having depth at every single position where there's competition. And that's where we're at. We thought we had a couple players separate themselves and said, okay, this is who's coming out of the fall looking the best or having the best opportunity to start. It has not. Since they've been back, it's been a competition every single day. Who is the best in the spot? Who can contribute offensively? Who can run the bases for us? Who contributes to the competitive spirit? Who responds well with adversity? I mean, every day we are evaluating them and evaluating our strengths and weaknesses as a team. We do not have a starting lineup as of today. And I know that sounds crazy. We have a couple players that have separated themselves from the pack, and that are on the whiteboard, but as of positions where they're at in the lineup, absolutely do not have a starting nine today. We've got about a starting 18.
Well, it's a terrible thing to have too much talent too much competitive talent on the roster. What a terrible thing to have to deal with. One of those players you mentioned, her Taria Coleman, who had come in from Oklahoma. One of the benefits of Oklahoma having a stacked roster is sometimes those players look for opportunities to play. She had an incredible season for you guys. Set the Houston single season record for on base percentage at .503. Was the first team All AAC player, and now I mean expectations are high for her in the Big 12 and for you guys this year. Obviously, competition level is going to go up. Expectations for her as in her junior year are going to go up. How is she handling that pressure mentally? And while I assume you guys aren't putting that pressure on her, that still pressure still exists of you've become a name people know and are going to pay attention to in the Big 12. How's she handling that?
You know, the best thing about Taria is she's very composed. She's not a highly emotional player, which allows her the opportunity to perform on multiple stages. She performed great last year, and that's not even the best to come from her. So this year with her, I mean, she's working just as hard as everybody else. I mean, she's getting challenged. We do put the pressure on them at practice to see how they handle that, challenge them daily. And for her, the best thing we could have done is surround her with hitters that are equal to her, if not better, on a bad day for her. So it gives her an opportunity to put her shoulders down and not carry the whole offense, like a few of them did last year.
We mentioned early on, you've got two new assistants on this coaching staff. Nadia Taylor, who played 4 years at Texas, spent last year at Michigan State. Hope Troutwine helped lead Oklahoma to the national championship in 2022 as a pitcher. What were you looking for when you went and found two new assistants to add to this roster?
We're looking for outwardly competitive coaches. And that was something we hired Coach Nod first. Her experience, she played at Texas. She has experience in the Big 12. She's also from Humble, which is on the north side of Houston. So finding somebody that's homegrown and that has just as much pride as in the city is huge. Her standard every day never wavers. And that was something that has been really refreshing as a head coach, is that she can handle her own area and you don't really have to manage it or look over it. She has an opinion. She's been able to contribute on some things, you know, with her still playing pro and Athletes Unlimited. Some of the stuff that's coming out, they get access to first. We've been able to implement right away. So that was a big deal for us, just to find somebody that's competitive, that's, you know, kind of aggressive and wants to win and knows what it takes to win in the Big 12. And then with Hope, we interviewed and talked to a lot of pitching coaches, and we kept coming back to her. And I remember having a conversation with Coach Gasso. She is fairly young. It's like, is she ready? And Coach is like, absolutely. And I trust Coach Gasso's opinion. I mean, she's the best coach in our game. So if Coach says she's ready, then I absolutely 100% buy into what Coach says and believe her. So when she speaks, we listen, and Hope held her own. She has some of the same values that we have. You know, on defense, this is how we moved. How do you pitch call? How do we work within this? What's some of your developmental plans? You know, with her still playing pro, she's still going through it every day too. So she works a lot on the physicality, the arm care, how to perfect things that, hey, how do you win when your stuff's not working that day? She's still in it, so she understands those feelings. She also had the rare experience to go from a mid-major to the Big 12. So that experience none of us had on staff as a player. She brings that as a player. So that's been really cool to see, kind of pick her brain on that and learn what do you wish you would have known? You know, how did you handle that? What was so different? And kind of getting that experience through her and helping her, you know, contribute to the staff and be a leader in that area for us as well.
Having also played for Coach Gasso at Oklahoma, obviously her philosophies are something that are important to you and how you want to run your program. You put your own stamp on things, of course, but how big is having somebody else on the staff who's also played under her in helping you kind of implement some of those philosophies?
It's huge. The verbiage, how we handle ourselves, the professionalism, the competitiveness, the expectations. How Coach Gasser runs her program is not repeatable anywhere else. How she teaches players to become women is repeatable, and that's what we're trying to implement here. And we're trying to take pieces of that. We're trying to take pieces of what she does, but she has perfected the program. I mean, they're national championship contending team every single years over decades. And that is very difficult as things change, as players change, as cultures change. She's been able to adjust and stay with that. And that's something bringing Hope on is like, okay, the version of Coach Castle that I got was different than what you got. What has she adjusted over the time, and how has she been able to stay connected and relevant in our game? And it's really awesome to have her perspective, Hope's perspective. And again, as much as they're learning and I'm trying to mentor, there's things that she's taught me as well. And that part as a coach and a person has been huge.
I want to talk about your schedule a little bit. Obviously, going from the AAC to the Big 12 is a step up in competition. Having to, it's one thing to have West Wichita State and USF and UCF. Now you have UCF and Oklahoma and Texas and Oklahoma State and Baylor and all these teams that have postseason expectations as well. With that increase in conference strength of schedule, what was your thought process in how you put together your non-conference schedule this year? Was it any different than you normally did with this transition?
We made some adjustments. We love to host the first few weekends out with our weather. And we usually get some northern schools, which is great because we don't get to play them during the year. We did make some adjustments. We get on the road a little sooner. That was something just evaluating last few years of what areas we need to improve on and focus on. We are playing some mid majors and we're playing some Power Five still. Our strength of schedule is very difficult in conference. So we met with somebody over the summer that kind of went through the numbers with us to make sure that we're doing stuff as a coaching staff to put us in the best position to host regionals or be an at-large bid. So making sure, we're doing what we need to be doing on the backside, adjusting who we play, looking at it based on the 4 columns of, RPI breakdown. Softball's also implementing the KIT format this year. So kind of learning that as well and kind of understanding how that works and talking to some basketball coaches and seeing how they use that to their advantage and how they learned to master those. So just making sure, again, strength of schedule, that we have the right amount of teams in each column, that we have an opportunity to open at home, sleep in our own beds, and then we have an opportunity to get on the road early and be challenged really early.
All right. You're going to have to walk me through what the KIT format is now.
Oh man, I'm learning too, but it does involve strength of schedule. It does involve, the run differential. I think, JT Gass was the one who talked to me about it a few years ago. I think 4 or 5 years ago, he talked about it. And it's just another way to basically seed that's outside of RPI. You don't always get to pick your opponents in conference. And that's something, how do you continue to reward the teams that are doing everything right?
Makes a lot of sense. All right, now I've got some research to go do. Okay, obviously, Houston, part of the Big 12, started all back in August. Soccer's played, football, men's and women's basketball is undergoing. Have you talked with some of the other Houston head coaches about what life in the Big 12 has been already?
I have. I'm very close with soccer. We share a hallway. Women's basketball coach, Sampson with men's basketball. We are very transparent, David with volleyball, and they basically said it's a grind. It's a physical grind. You don't get a weekend off. And not that the American was anything to, lift your nose at. That's a very, very good conference, have sent 3 or 4 teams in the years past. He's like, the Big 12 is different. The physicality is different. Their depth on their rosters is different. So not only is it going to be awesome for us to have new experiences to go to new places, we also get to challenge ourselves a little bit different.
All right. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten from one of the other coaches?
Find a hobby. They said, find a hobby. And I was like, okay, I don't know if that's really beneficial in the wins and loss column, but that's great. And again, we talk a lot about being prepared. When we go here, what can we expect environment wise? I heard from somebody in basketball that going to BYU for men's basketball was like, whoa. And so that was interesting to hear. We haven't played at BYU in probably the last 8 to 10 years as a softball program. So we know what to expect from CF. We've played at OU within the last 8 years, so we kind of know what to expect there. We have not played at Iowa State, which is where we go this year. So again, we kind of have we've played at Baylor last year. We have some experience with it, but I don't think we have necessarily the experience with maybe the environment, the weather, those type of things.
Yeah, from what I hear, because BYU gives tickets out for free for softball, that arena is packed and full every game.
That's amazing. I do think they have one of the most beautiful scenery and backdrops.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Yes.
standing in center field looking back, and the mountain had snow on it. It was very beautiful. And their complex was very nice when we visited years ago. But again, that's an environmental difference for us, is going to places where there's 1,000 to 2,000 people in the stands. That is not what we've experienced the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to have packed house for UCF, packed house for BYU, packed house for Oklahoma State, packed house for Oklahoma, packed like it is going to be. I'm sure it's both daunting and fun to know like we're going to be going to environments that where fans understand softball, appreciate softball, enjoy this, are loud and rowdy. I mean, that's got to be again a little bit daunting because it puts more pressure, but also fun to know that you're going to go to places where people care.
They do care. I mean, some of these places, softball's their premier sport. And with it being on the verge of being a revenue sport, how awesome is it that we get to be part of history and help try to move it into the black for every school? We have that talk of not only are they passionate about softball, not only, are they going to show up and wear their school colors, they're going to pull your roster. They're going to know your guys, call you by name. And that's something that again creates that fun competitive environment, but those are again distractions that we've already trained for.
All right, your season gets underway Friday night against Northwestern State. They're at home at Cougar Softball Stadium. You've got Northwestern State, Nichols, and UTSA this weekend. Coach, I am the 10-team Big 12 conference. I am rooting for 7 or more teams to make it to the postseason this year. So I'm going to put the pressure on you guys. That means you might have to be one of the ones who has to step up here. I mean, preseason expectations for Houston aren't high from the outside looking in. It is hard to judge a program when it's gone through as many changes as yours have. Is that something that even like permeates into the building of like there's low expectations, or is it just kind of like, no, all we're worried about is what we think?
All we're worried about is ourselves. Our players and our coaches know what go on every day at practice. They know the talent that we have. They know, the hard physical demanding practices that we've had. But don't think that preseason poll's not printed somewhere.
Blown up, extra large, hanging on a wall, circled. Everyone know. Okay, good. All right. Coach, I am excited to have you back on the show. Thank you very much for your time. I'm excited to have Houston in the Big 12. I think this is going to be a very fun and exciting season. I wish you nothing but success, especially in non-conference play, because Big 12, let's boost those RPIs. Everyone does well, beats everybody else up, and then you can come beat each other up. That's fine. So good luck to your team this season. Thank you so much, and we look forward to having you on again.
Thank you for having us, and hopefully our paths cross this season.